All right, deep divers, ready to dive into a story with capes and a whole lot of corporate schemes going on.
Sounds intriguing.
It really is, and we're so glad you sent this one in. This is 45 inside, 8.5 by 11 inch .pdf, a story by Marcy Schaff,
Okay.
and it looks like we're dealing with a businessman. Big surprise there, right? With, well, let's just say he's got a real thirst for power
Mm-hmm.
and absolutely no regard for the planet.
Yeah, from what I gather, it's a classic case of corporate greed meeting environmental peril.
And of course, where there's environmental peril, there are heroes trying to save the day. But
Naturally.
knowing our listeners, I bet you're wondering if there's more to this story than just a simple good versus evil, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the minute I saw the villain's name, Ignatius v. Cinco, I knew we were in for something, well, different.
Ignatius v. Cinco, that's certainly a name. It's not your everyday villain's name.
Right.
It makes you wonder if Schaff is hinting at something more with that choice.
Oh, absolutely. What do you make of a name like that, by the way? It's not every day you meet a villain named Ignatius.
It's definitely a choice, isn't it? And names, oh, well, they carry a certain weight in storytelling, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
To me, it hints at a possible deeper characterization, maybe even a touch of satire
Oh, totally.
at play.
And satire or not, the story doesn't shy away from portraying Ignatius's, well, less than heroic qualities. There's this one line that really stood out to me. He boasted about being the greatest businessman of all time, but he cared nothing for people or the planet.
Yeah, that's pretty blunt.
It really is.
It gets right to the heart of his character, or lack thereof, I should say.
And it makes you wonder why. Why the relentless pursuit of profit at the expense of everything else?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because we see shades of this in the real world all the time. It's like Schaff is holding up a mirror to those figures, the ones who prioritize personal gain
Right.
over the well-being of the planet and its people. It makes you question, is Ignatius simply wired that way? Or is there something more nuanced at play? Like, were societal pressures, a lack of empathy, did those things shape him into who he is?
That's a good question. And speaking of intriguing characters, enter Captain 34 and his sidekick, Superhero 78. Now, I have to ask, why those numbers? Is Schaff just throwing darts at a board, or could there be a hidden meaning, a connection to their powers, maybe?
I'm always up for a good numerical mystery, and remember, details like this are rarely arbitrary in storytelling.
You're right. You're right.
Let's consider Captain 34 for a moment. He's described as a symbol of balance and harmony,
Okay.
which, when you think about it, connects brilliantly with the environmental theme.
It does.
Could the number 34 itself represent a kind of equilibrium, a balance between those opposing forces?
That's a really cool thought. 34, a symbol of balance.
Yeah.
Almost like a mathematical representation of the delicate harmony of nature. I'm ready to dive into numerology textbooks after this. What about Superhero 78, then? Any theories on that number?
It's definitely a bit more enigmatic.
It is.
But if we're following this theme of balance, perhaps 78 represents a different facet of it. Think about it. You have Captain 34, this embodiment of individual equilibrium, working alongside Superhero 78. Could 78 then symbolize the balance achieved through collaboration, through the synergy of two forces working together?
That's a really interesting take. It adds a whole other layer to their dynamic.
It does, doesn't it?
It's not just a hero and a sidekick. It's this intricate dance of individual strength and the power of teamwork.
Exactly. They complement each other, highlighting this idea that even with great individual power, true balance often requires collaboration. But for all this talk of balance, Ignatius v. Cinco, well, he certainly seems intent on disrupting it.
Oh, absolutely. I don't want to spoil too much for our listeners, but let's just say Ignatius has a knack for keeping his dirty dealings well hidden, at least for a while.
Ah, yes, the classic villainous tactic of deception. But I'm curious, how does Schiff build the suspense leading up to the unveiling of Ignatius's schemes? Does she use vivid imagery, create a sense of looming danger? It's often those subtle details that heighten the impact of the truth being revealed.
Well, she definitely sets the stage for a dramatic showdown. You know, there are whispers of secret meetings, documents vanishing into thin air, maybe even a secret lair or two. You know, classic villain stuff.
Right.
But what really struck me was the reaction of the people once Ignatius's true colors are exposed. It's like this wave of betrayal, but also a powerful surge of demanding justice.
It's the power of public opinion, isn't it? It can be a real force for change, especially when it comes to holding powerful figures accountable. What's interesting here is the way Shape portrays that collective outcry.
Yeah.
Is it a quiet murmur of disapproval or a roar that demands immediate action?
It's definitely a roar. The story describes this groundswell of support for Captain 34 and Superhero 78, like
Yeah.
a collective refusal to let Ignatius get away with his blatant disregard for the environment. It's actually quite inspiring.
Absolutely. It speaks to the power of collective action and the responsibility we all share in holding those in power accountable, especially when their actions threaten the well-being of our planet. Makes you wonder, is Schaaf drawing inspiration from real-life environmental movements, maybe echoing their struggles and triumphs?
That's an excellent question. And while I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, I will say that Ignatius definitely feels the heat from this public outcry. But remember, we're talking about Ignatius Cinco here, a man who clearly believes he's above the rules. He's not going down without a fight.
Naturally. Because what's a good story without a healthy dose of conflict, right? So tell me, how does Ignatius react to this turn of events? Does he try to maintain his facade, or does he lash out, revealing his true nature to the world?
Well, he's definitely not one to back down easily. I'd say there's a certain tenacity in individuals like Ignatius, even if it's a bit misguided.
That's for sure. He's got that villainous drive, that's for sure.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, deep down, does he truly believe he's in the right? Or is it all a carefully constructed act?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it gets even more complicated when you consider that line we talked about earlier about him thinking it was unfair that he might face consequences for his actions. What do you make of that? Is that genuine self-reflection or just another manipulation tactic? That's what makes Schaaf's writing so interesting. She gives us just enough to make us think, to make us question our own perceptions of this character.
Absolutely.
It'd be easy to just slap a villain label on him and move on, but that one line, it adds a layer of depth we can't ignore.
Absolutely. It's like she's inviting us to look beyond the surface, to consider that even someone like Ignatius V. Cinco might be capable of change. But of course, that begs the question, what would it take for someone like that to genuinely understand the impact of their actions?
Right. Is redemption even possible? It's that age-old debate. Nature versus nurture. Is someone like Ignatius inherently bad? Or is it a product of their environment, their upbringing, the systems they've learned to navigate?
It's a question that goes way beyond this story, wouldn't you say? It makes you think about all the factors that shape a person, for better or for worse. But even with that complexity surrounding Ignatius, the story does give us that classic hero moment. Justice prevails, he's apprehended by Captain 34 and Superhero 78, and the world starts to heal.
As it should. But here's the thing. The resolution of a conflict, especially one with huge consequences like this, it's really the end of the story, is it?
True, true. There's always a what happens next, lingering in the air.
Exactly. So does Ignatius learn from his mistakes behind bars? Does he come out a changed man? Or does he harbor that resentment, plotting his revenge?
Ooh, now that would be an interesting sequel. Imagine Ignatius V. Cinco, hardened by prison, becoming an even bigger threat to the environment. He could become like an eco-terrorist or something.
Right. He's got that personal vendetta now, a score to settle. But we also have to consider our heroes. Captain 34 and Superhero 78, they've saved the day, but what new challenges await them?
Right. It's like you said before, sometimes getting rid of one villain just makes room for new threats to pop up.
Exactly.
And those threats, well, they don't always have to be another mustache-twirling villain, right? It could be something way more insidious, like deeply rooted corruption or even a global environmental crisis that needs a whole different approach to heroism.
Now that you mention it, I'm curious about how Schaaf might bring those bigger, more systemic issues into the narrative. We talked about the power of collective action, but what about the role of government, corporations, everyday people in creating lasting change? It's a really relevant conversation to be having these days.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about Captain 34's whole balance and harmony thing. How would he, with his whole deal about nonviolence and respecting all living things, how would he handle a world where good and evil are blurred, where the real villains might be the very systems we live in?
Such a good point. And let's not forget about Superhero 78. They're often in the background, you know how sidekicks are, but I think there's a real opportunity for some great character development there. How does Superhero 78 step into a bigger role in this new era? Does their partnership with Captain 34 change as they face these new challenges?
Maybe Superhero 78 ends up being the one who pushes Captain 34 to take on those systems, to realize that sometimes balance needs a little shaking things up. It's like their dynamic takes on a whole new meaning in the face of these bigger conflicts.
I love that interpretation. And it really speaks to Shafe's talent as a storyteller. She's created this world that's both super engaging on the surface and then full of these deeper layers to explore. Even though the story seems resolved, we're left with these threads, these hints at what could be.
Oh, for sure.
It keeps us thinking, keeps us questioning.
She's definitely given us a lot